Do you love audiobooks? You can get a free 30-day trial membership to audible.com by visiting audibletrial.com/divebarrockstar. They have thousands of audiobook titles, as well as podcasts, guided wellness programs, theatrical performances, A-list comedy, and exclusive Audible originals you won't find anywhere else. Get your free trial membership at audibletrial.com/divebarrockstar. Welcome to the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast, a show exploring the lives of professional musicians of all types, touring musicians, recording artists, songwriters, engineers, bar bands, wedding bands, and anyone making their living in the music industry. Whether you've dreamed of being a professional or you already are one, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Eric Baines, and I hope that you not only find some entertainment here, but also some helpful tips, trade secrets, and ideas that will help you achieve your dreams. So there's a new website and a really cool place to get music news, and it's called rocksellermagazine.com. And it's based in LA, and it's a lot of rock and roll and pop music news, which is pretty cool if you're into that stuff. But they also just started an independent artist program where you can go and buy CDs if you're still listening to CDs, which a lot of people do. And you can still get them here at this website, as well as digital copies of independent artists. And one of those records on that list that you can buy is my record, Dive Bar Rockstar. So if you wanted to get a copy of that CD, that's a great place to go. It's rocksellermagazine.com. And the person that's heading up this new independent artist program happens to be my guest today, because he's also a great bass player and a really great dude. He's originally from Canada. Then he spent 3 years in Nashville, where he recorded with Vince Gill, Brent Mason, Steve Warren, Ricky Skaggs, and others. Then he came to Los Angeles, where he currently resides, and along with playing all kinds of gigs, he became band leader for a show called The Mad Tea Party at Disney's California Adventure, which I was also a part of, which also led to him making a record called Love and War. He raised a lot of money through a Kickstarter and put together a team of singers, players, and engineers to make a really cool record. He recently revisited this album by doing some live-ish videos, and he used some players from the record and singers from the record, and also some other guys and some newer players. And the series of YouTube videos is called Safer at Home Performances, so you can check that out. And by the way, the Independent Artist Program just launched this week, so we didn't talk about it in the interview, but you should check it out anyway at rocksellermagazine.com. So please enjoy my conversation with Mike Hill. Well, the last time I saw you was at the Fox and Hounds playing.
Right.
This is called the Dive Bar Rockstar show. So that just,
how
it
appropriate.
proves that you are a Dive Bar Rockstar.
And a Dive Bar Rockstar came to a dive bar to watch a Dive Bar Rockstar.
Yeah. And that's actually a song off my record called Dive Bar Rockstar from 2009. And in 2009, I was playing at the Fox and Hounds at least every Thursday.
You were saying that.
Every Friday, So that was a part of that experience. Pretty hardcore.
You're the ghost of Christmas present kind of in the moment, or from,
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Or past. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's, do you enjoy doing the bars and stuff like that?
Not really.
But well, not everybody does, that's right. For sure.
Now, as a lot of us have put a lot of time into those bars. I mean, you take a gig and it's usually a weekday, or it's a time that you're not doing anything, and you kind of leave your weekends open for the bigger gigs. And I mean, you make a couple $100, $150, $100.
Yeah, it has gotten slightly better. Over the years.
And it is fun, if you're playing with it's all about playing with the right people.
Right.
If it's people that you're like, then it's going to be a hard $100 to earn. And a long $100 to earn. You being with the right people, you could have a blast and just say that was a rehearsal, or that was just a fun jam, and you're having fun.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the best way to look at it. There was it's kind of a bar restaurant that I spent a lot of time in Palm Springs, actually Palm Desert.
Oh,
It's
really?
called Rock's Fire Grill, Firehouse Grill, Rock's Firehouse Grill.
Yeah. I
And
played there.
you did? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So they opened up and they wanted live music. So I was playing in a band at the time in Palm Springs, and we were their number one choice. Let's just do it. You know, we're going to go in there and do every Friday or every Saturday. I can't remember. It was Friday and Saturday. It was one of those. And we just did every weekend. And of course, every time we were there, someone was buying us shots. You know, we'd have a segment for a bass solo, a drum solo. And it was just a fun time. People came there to party, and it became this huge thing. Like, come over. It's a badass band. We just did. They allowed us to do whatever we wanted to do. You know, whatever music, whatever songs we wanted to do, we could change it up, and people loved it. And we did things like got up on the bar, played up on the bar. You know, we had wireless
Right.
packs. We'd go play up on there. We could walk up to strangers sitting down eating and sit on their lap and play. We can tell everyone to come up, and we'd dance with them on the dance floor. Just really fun things, you know.
Right.
And that was a blast. I mean, we would look forward to playing at those places. I mean, or this place in particular. And man, it was good because it was the same good crew, you know.
Yeah. But we really met on the show at Disneyland,
Right.
California Adventure,
Yes.
I guess, technically, called the Mad Tea Party.
Right.
And that was quite an adventure. And I think something it's interesting to me because it provides a lot of musicians with a lot of work, and but it's at the same time, it's such a corporate job, you know? And I liked it. One side of me
I'd like
always
to know
wanted to be a corporate person, and like having the idea of a day job, and like, it was pretty cool, but you got to get used to like, okay, there's a list of songs you've got to rehearse today, and whoever's leading the rehearsal is going to be marking those off. And it doesn't even matter whether they're well played necessarily, depending on the thing. We just got to mark it off, and then we can go home. You know, anyway, there's like that sort of thing. And
I will say that when you came in, it was a million times better than what it was.
Oh wow!
It was
wow.
It was wild from the beginning. It was the most unproductive, productive rehearsals you've ever experienced, you know.
Well, also you're going 8 hours a day for like 2 weeks or something. So it's a corporate job in that sense too. Like, you're there all day. You've got assigned breaks, you know, it's a union job.
Yeah. I mean, okay.
But you have 2-3 people per position that are all trying to rehearse at the same time.
Yes.
Which is odd.
So at first, because it was 4 drummers, 4 bass players, they had everyone in on the same day in the beginning.
Gotcha.
So, and plus all the singers. So you'd run through, here's the thing, is because it was corporate, they didn't want you to rehearse songs at home. Only rehearse songs there. However, you get pretty much one pass. So I go up and play, for instance, and we go through 3 songs. Well, now you have to have a 15-minute break for everyone. So there's 3 other bands waiting.
Right.
And that 4th band that doesn't get a chance until maybe the afternoon is just sitting there and then have to take a break, sit there, take lunch, sit there, take a 15-minute break, and then you play your 3 songs, then you go home.
Man.
One time each. Yeah.
But you are getting paid.
But you are getting paid for your time.
The whole time you're there. And it's not nothing. Like, you know, it was a decent paying union thing, you know.
Yeah.
But wow. Yeah, but you would think that there'd be a better way to do it than that.
They kind of figure it out, and it got a little bit better, a little bit more, you know, streamlined, and you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd like to know your take on the whole thing, because I think my experience was a little bit different from yours, because you came in.
Yeah, I came in on it was like a restart of the show. They had canceled the show and then brought it back, and then I came in then. So really it was just me.
And did you know anything about the show?
Yes. I had seen the show a few times.
Got it. Okay. Now, could you imagine, like, when I came in, we had no idea what the show was going to look like. We had no idea what the stage was going to look like. We didn't even know the gear. We were just rehearsing for this unknown event.
Right.
But it was supposed to be cool.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us personally didn't think it was going to be cool.
Right.
And we're just, this is just a gig. We're all here in this, we're all taking this gig because, it's money, it's Disney. It could be, so you can get something out of it later. Maybe you can connect with more people, another network of musicians, which it was. And that was the biggest, I think, one of the biggest, greatest things about it was to be friends with everyone. And out of that is this whole other musician ecosystem because, as you know, in LA, there's so many pockets of musicians.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get in that pocket. When you're in, you're good.
Right.
But it's like, as a stranger, who are you? Nobody, everyone's trying to get in. You have to have someone within to get to pull you in. Almost like an exclusive, like, nightclub. Like, you have to know someone in the so that the bouncer will let you in, and then you're in and you're cool and everyone's cool. Right. So, but that was like this, you had that opportunity to be this new forming network. And we all started unknown, like we didn't even know what we could get away with. There was no rules. They wanted to do something, but not knew how to explain it, and because they didn't know yet, so they're kind of developing the show like just as we're going along. Wow. And then it just turned into this. Once the show started, it was a little timid at first with the people on the stage. It's like, how do we perform? How do we kind of get into it? Are we playing to people just walking by, or are we playing to people that are stopping and watching? But it ended up being a stopping thing where people were walking in and stopping, and a crowd would start to build up over time. And you're like, okay, this is a concert now. It's not just...
It's an event.
It's not a tiger in a cage. Right. It's not a zoo. It's an attraction. It's a concert.
And if you've never seen the show, everyone's in like crazy costumes. Yeah. Makeup. I mean, we were the March Hares, and we were in rabbit ears and spandex and Doc Martens and like wigs and in-ears and making all this work together and jumping around like crazy. Right. It's an insane show. So I can't imagine. I bet. Well, it's interesting that you kind of watched that evolve, because by the time I got there, it's full on. Like, I knew what I was getting into.
Right, and that you kind of knew what you're getting into, and then when you get into it, you're like, wow, like you have to catch up in a way, right?
Oh yeah, big time.
Right, like everyone's doing all this stuff. Yeah. Where do I fit into this? It was an improv gig, but not musically.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
Right. That's what. So you played the same parts. Yeah. But you never knew what you're going to do. It was almost like a whose line is it anyways on stage, because someone could come up to you and you got to react to that, because you're not you, you're a character. You're this character. Right. What is that character going to do? What is your interpretation of that character going to do? Right. Yeah. And which is pretty interesting that they let us do that, where we can have our own persona of that character.
And that's super unusual for Disney. Because Disney is also like joining the army. You've got to have your hair a certain length. Can't have a beard. All these sort of stuff like that. So we were kind of the rebels. Absolutely. Because we could do whatever we wanted. Yeah. That was our excuse. Oh, we're on Mad Tea. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, like from the beginning, it was interesting where it like I was saying, it was timid and we didn't know what we could get away with. And then we start to realize, where is this line that we can't cross? Yeah. Right? It is Disney. It's somewhere. There is a line somewhere. A bunch of us were like, okay, how far can we go? Right. And we start to test the waters a little bit. You get to test, the hot stove, when are you going to get burnt, from what you do on stage, and respecting the park, respecting that you are Disney in front of children, all that stuff. You don't do anything crazy.
But it's also a rock show.
But it's a rock show.
It's not... It's some pretty heavy stuff.
You're a rock star on stage to somebody. Mm-hmm. How are you gonna, show off?
And it's also that park serves alcohol. Yes. So it's a little more adult. It's not like playing in front of It's a Small World.
Absolutely. Yeah, right.
So the line is a little farther. Yes. But there's still a line.
It was crazy. And after that, it started to evolve like, hey, we can do this. We can do that. Now I'm going to do this. Right. And if I do this to you, how are you going to react? So if I came up to you and did something, what are you going to do? And then how am I going to respond? A lot of, communication on stage.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. It was fun. I mean, yeah, it was fun. I'll leave it at that. It was weird, but it was fun. And I became a way better performer because I'd never.
Yes.
That was the first time I.
Same.
Sort of allowed myself to go into that type of a gig. It's way out of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it, and I'm so glad I did.
We're glad that you came in big time. Yeah, very glad.
Thanks.
Yeah, you killed it.
It was a lot of fun.
It was a good time.
And the other great thing about it is that there's this massive amount of diehard fans.
Yeah,
that you have been quite successful in sort of steering them in the direction of being fans of yourself and turning that into sort of another project called Love and War.
Yeah. So we had all these people come and which is great. And we played to a crowd but with Disneyland, there's a lot of annual pass holders. So it's a little bit different than Disney World where it's a new crowd every night. This time it was almost the same, maybe three-fourths of the crowd was the same crowd with new people. And so it was the same people watching the same show. But yes, it was the same show, but it was different because the improv thing came into effect where anything can happen on stage.
Right.
And that's why they came. What's going to happen tonight? And everyone was eager to go see what's going to happen tonight.
Right.
And people start to be familiar with, oh, it's this guy as the March Hare tonight, or it's this guy, being the Mad Hatter or the drummer, and people start to make favorites. So they start to come out to their favorites because they like how they interpret that character, and so they come for that person or these people. So you start to see the same people that come to see you all the time, and they usually want to come more near the front. And then there's guys that just come to every single show, which is great.
Right.
So out of that, my experience was, we're just doing the show. This is great. Oh, great. There's people. Now there's people taking photographs and they're finding us on Facebook. At first, it was like, this is great. I wouldn't mind getting photos of myself on stage.
Yeah.
And we're talking, these people have nice cameras.
Yeah.
They get the nice professional cameras, not iPhone. It's the big SLR cameras. It's awesome, And so now I'm fishing around looking for good photos so I can post some, and then I'll say, hey, so and so did this. I'll tag them. Great. And then all of a sudden there's more and more and more, and then all of a sudden there's all these photos and all these people, and they're all friend requesting you on Facebook, Instagram, and at the time Tumblr was a very big website for blogging.
Gotcha.
And then you have bloggers blogging about you. Then you have Instagram people about you, and you're starting to get tagged left, right, and center all over the place. And then they want to be your friend, and then so you go, do I accept them or do I keep them away? So a lot of us made fan pages or artist pages.
Right.
And the artist page was a way that fans can interact with us and not get into our personal page, which was great at first. However, we started you start to see the most familiar faces. You start to add them to your personal, Facebook, and start growing and growing and growing. And it was crazy. Like over the years, it was a lot. We're talking a lot,
right?
A lot of people.
Yeah.
Like I accumulated a couple thousand more people that are constantly active with me on Facebook. And it's wild, like, people writing in the inbox or people wanting to show, hey, I did this great video of you. Awesome, I want to use that, And that was their end to be, I guess, to learn a little bit about me.
Right.
And so a lot of these fans were wanting to know the person under the costume.
Right.
Who are they? There's this fantasy with these people of like, oh, they look so great in this costume. What are they underneath? In a way, right? Not sexually, but maybe that too. Maybe that too, right? So, and so when you start to, then a lot of us were posting, hey, I have another gig outside of Disney. It'd be great to have a bigger crowd. It would be great to have more people out to my show. Or, hey, I do original music, or so-and-so does original music. It'd be great to do a show and have people come rather than, hey, I'm in Hollywood, I'm going to do my showcase, and 3 people show up.
Right. Absolutely.
My mom, my dad, and my sister or brother, right? That's how it kind of works. But now you got 100 people show up to your show
Yeah.
because they liked you at Disney
Yeah.
and they want to know more about you. Now they fall in love with your music.
Yeah.
They fall in love with how you, or just how you perform on stage.
Yeah.
And so a bunch of us in the cast kind of, I wouldn't say we took advantage of the opportunity to be able to make more music because we could actually see a tangible audience that wants to listen.
Right.
And that's what a lot of us did, was we started doing original music, and we had a fan base of that for that.
Right.
And so for myself, what I did was I saw a couple other friends do Kickstarters. Mm-hmm. And what the Kickstarter is, hey, help me raise enough money so I can do an album that I've always wanted to do, or an EP that I've always wanted to do that I could have never done before.
Right.
Unless I save money and do a side job and do this and spend a lot of money. Now we're like, wait a minute, these people really want to see my original music, or they want more of my original music. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give them the opportunity to make that a possibility for me and for them.
Right.
Why not? It's a win-win for everybody. So these Kickstarters were like, hey, I need to raise, to be honest, you need to raise $10,000 to make so many songs. Things are expensive.
Yeah.
And these Kickstarters were actually very successful. When someone asked for 10 grand, they would make 15,000.
Yeah.
When someone wanted 20, they'd make 25,000 or 30,000. And you start to see, wow, people are very generous, and
they really want to see or hear your music.
they really want to hear it, and they really want to see us succeed.
Right.
And also, not just to see us succeed, but feel like they were a part of something bigger.
Right.
And Disney,
It's another way to interact and be a part of it, for sure.
And say, hey, I helped make this.
Right.
So after seeing successful Kickstarters happen, I decided, you know what? Now, these were singers that were doing it, singer-songwriters, but I'm a bass player.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone knew that yet. I'm a bass player. So,
that was my...
Yeah.
Well, let's get to the record, but I wanted to just, your goal, according to what's still up there, was $35,000. You raised $41,000.
Yes.
That's pretty crazy. But along with that, you've got rewards set up. So those are a lot of work,
Yeah.
So and a lot of them that you were offering, let's go hang out at Disney all day.
Right.
And was it as intense as it seemed like? Because I remember you actually playing some nights, and you were out in the crowd with some people that had donated $1,000 or whatever, and let's go hang out. How was that?
The rewards were kind of split up in two different ways. There's tangible, physical gifts you can have, right? So some people want an autographed CD. Some people want a shirt. Some people want a signed bass by the people off the album, right? So we had those type of rewards. Those were pretty easy to do. You just had to buy those things. Shipping was probably the biggest expense out of it all. But then the other side of it is quality time, right? So you have, for people that are away or people that just, want a physical thing, we have that. So there's Kickstarter rewards for that. There's also Kickstarter rewards of people who are willing to donate a good amount of money just for that one-on-one interaction, that one-on-one experience together, that one-on-one something that you'll remember. It's memories, right? So you're just you're going for memories. You're going for a good time, and imagine a lot of us, you could go to LA or any town, and maybe there is a local hero of yours, and now you get the and maybe that person is very hard to get reached, very hard to get a hold of, and now you have this opportunity to just show who you are and find out more about them. And it was awesome for these fans, and also for myself, to learn about each other and go oh yeah, I've seen you at the show a million times. You donated this amount of money. Now we're together. What are you all about?
Right.
What's your life story? And here's my life story. And you get to share that with people.
Right.
And I think it was a really special thing to be able to do that. On the other hand, yes, it could have been long days too. If like for instance, you said a day at Disney,
Right.
The whole reasoning behind that was a lot of these people that donated are annual pass holders. So
Right.
they're in free anyways.
I got you.
I'm a cast member. I get in for free. So there's no big cost.
Mm-hmm.
So we can both go in, do some ride, whatever they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes these days where we didn't even go on a ride. We just hung out at Disney,
Right. Right.
Another time was they wanted to get on so many rides. Let's get as many rides as we can. And the ones with the pictures, right? The ones like Space Mountain picture, the roller coaster picture, so they can have those pictures and say, look what we did. This was so much fun,
Right.
And there's also, there's Disney Days of groups. So I was me and a group of people that we all hung out
Wow.
and got to, just hang out.
Right.
So, as for, to answer your question, like how like intense it was, sometimes, after a long summer day, it was, you're burnt out because you're talking nonstop, you're moving around, it becomes a very physical thing, that you you didn't experience or you didn't anticipate to be.
Right. Or I guess also like, was all of this, did you do all this stuff after the record was done? Or is this all part of the process? You're trying to make a record, you're trying to write songs, you're trying to get musicians in at different times, and in the meantime you've got to go take a day at Disney.
Yeah.
Like it just,
and then you got I had to visit like Yamaha, get a bass. I had to go, order. It was, so the album took 2 years to do.
Gotcha.
It took a long time.
Wow.
But the reasoning behind it is I didn't want it to be, hey, we got 4 days in the studio, we got to knock it out, then we got to mix it. Time is money.
Right.
I put myself in a position where we can take our time to really capture, great sounds, put time into it. And yes, we did have some studio hours that were, we were kind of under the gun, which is fine. But other than that, a lot of it was, just juggling. Like, hey, we do some guitars this day, great. Or songwriting the next day. It's to be honest, the Kickstarter is no joke. It's probably like the most work. It's honestly more than a part-time job.
Right.
It's like on the border of a full-time job.
Yeah.
Right. I wouldn't say it's full-time, but just right under that. You're putting that many hours. I mean,
I think that's what I'm getting to is like people that are thinking about doing the Kickstarter thing. Like, it's a thing. Like it's a time, especially if you're going to be making that kind of money. People want extra for that,
Right, because there is putting the research into knowing, hey, who can sell me the print the cheapest CDs. There's also who can make stickers. Are you going to have merch? All these Kickstarter rewards, like
t-shirts.
T-shirts, like
offering.
Who's gonna make me the cheapest T-shirt, but it's not going to be a crappy T-shirt. So for me, I did lyric book, I did photo book, I did pics, I did bracelets, I did T-shirts, I did autograph little thank you cards, I did buttons, every patches, every single thing you could imagine. Little USB drives that look like bullets because it was a World War II theme.
That's cool.
Meeting with an artist, start to create concepts because that takes some time.
Yeah.
Then you got to make artists.
And your artwork is no joke. It's pretty cool. It's not simple.
The girl that did the artwork was Brianna Garcia, and she was awesome. Like, she would actually do sketches of us at Mad Tea Party, of us. Wow. And I was like, she's so good. And she's actually a professional artist. So I went up to her and I'm like, hey, it'd be awesome. Like, I have this concept. We start to, go back and forth on ideas. I'm like, I want it to be military. I kind of want like something it's love and war so it's the concept. So we have to put something love and war together and make it all work out. And so I started going, let's do a World War II theme. And so let's put a bomb in there and let's make it a crest or, kind of like a military patch, but then have a heart in there as well, but it's bleeding and all this stuff. Like, I was like throwing all these ideas and she's like, okay, how do I put this all together? Right. You want all this stuff in one icon kind of a thing, but she did it. She pulled it off and it's badass.
Yeah. It's super cool.
So I just spent time. My whole thing was quality because I was looking at it as like, what if I don't get to do this ever again? Yeah. This is my one opportunity. I raised all this money. I have the money. I can do it. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna spend my time and do it right. Like, do it the right way. And the lyric book was going to be something simple as just lyrics on a page, and we're going to like photocopy. Then I was like, no, it's going to be like a legit book. It's going to be a professional book that you can actually find in a store.
Wow.
It's the same quality.
Wow.
You know,
That's cool.
I did pay a little bit more money out of my pocket to make sure that these things were at that level.
Right.
Even though the Kickstarter money gave me opportunity to make those things, I put a little bit more money to step it up one level.
That's awesome. Well, it paid off like crazy.
Yeah.
Because the record is great.
Thanks.
It's pretty incredible. And like, so how does a person who, you don't sing?
No.
And you don't write songs really?
No.
You're not necessarily a producer.
No.
But you made a great record.
Yeah.
How's that happen?
So, I mean, the biggest thing, okay, so it all came down to this, where a friend of mine, Jenny Kidd, did an EP. She did a Kickstarter. It did great.
Another Alice in the show.
She was a singer in the show. And I remember, like, she put it out there. It got funded. She could not believe it got funded. She's like, oh my God, I can do it. She did an album. And we were sitting, I remember I went to one of her little rewards. It was a beach day reward, right? If you donated, you get to go to the beach with her and hang out. A beach day, which is great. It was fun.
Yeah.
I went to her beach day and we hung out. And while we're packing up, she's like, hey, why don't we just, go over to our friend's house? She has a pool, hot tub. Let's just hang out. We'll do like a little after party over there. Great. So we're hanging out in the hot tub. And she's like, after a couple of drinks, like, Mike, you should do a Kickstarter. And I'm thinking, I'm not a singer. Like, how would I do that? How would I pull it off? She's like, no, you can do it. Like, just trust me. Just do a Kickstarter. It'll get funded and do whatever you want. And I'm thinking, well, hold on. Let me be like realistic here. The way I look at it, I'm such a perfectionist that yes, I can write a song, but I don't think I'm a great songwriter. Maybe some people do, but I'd rather use someone that I think is a fantastic songwriter. I would use them. Right. So I started thinking, okay, what if I did the whole like Santana thing or Herbie Hancock thing where they're instrumentalists, they don't sing. Yes, they songwrite a little bit, but how did they do their albums? Well, Santana had all these different singers on every song. They had different musicians. I'm like, wait a minute. What if I did that? Could I pull it off as a bass player? Because it's not just like I'm a guitar player because I'm in the front or a keyboard player or piano player. I'm like the backbone rhythm section. Can a drummer or a bass player pull it off?
Right.
I could have been a drummer and said, I want to do an album. Right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
For sure.
So I was like, okay, why don't I just put the strengths in the right spots? I'm great at bass. I'll play bass. I'll find a guitar player, the best guitar players, I could find. Great, I'll use them. I'll use my favorite drummers. Great. Okay, I got this band now. This is great. I got good guys. I'm going to grab people that I think their songs are awesome. I'm going to use their songs. People that I think can write some great songs, I'm going to use them because that's their strength.
Right.
And then, like the artist I used, that was her strength. I'm going to use hers. And I used everyone's strengths to be able to build this thing all together. Right. And I was just placing the pieces.
Right.
And just say, hey, this is my vision. And it was kind of cool to say, I want this. Yeah. And they can pull it off. I want that. Okay. No, not like that, but like this. Yeah. Yes, I like that. I'm going to keep that, Yeah. And to see all like, and what people come up with, not just artists or musicians, just like anyone that's creative that are good at what they do. It's like, you have an idea. Okay. Like, let's say I want to write a song about, being in a bar and being a dive bar rock star, right? Then I say, this is my idea. And the person will start writing and start doing their thing. They get back and it's better than what I even thought of. Right. And maybe they wrote about, something that expanded off of that, a place my mind didn't even go. And I'm like, yes, that just blew my mind. That's perfect, right? And so I grabbed these people with these great strengths and I put them all together. And I mean, it worked. Yeah. It worked. I grabbed a great producer, a great mixer, everything was, and what I did is also, I knew what people's strengths were right? And I place them in those positions. It's like a professional team, like a hockey team, baseball team, right? You want the best defense in this position. You're in the playoffs. You're going to put the best guys in there. That's what I did.
Right.
And I was being executive producer out of it all.
Right.
And saying, this is what I want, right? So I'm acting as the coach.
Right.
And I'm saying, okay, you are the best forward, or you're the best guitar player, you're the best singer, okay? Now I'm writing these songs. We got this great songwriter. He was writing this incredible song. We're going to pitch it up a key. We're going to pitch it up. Mm-hmm. Can you pull that off? And they'll go, yeah, yes and no. I think you can pull it off. It sounds better in this key. And what I would do is I'd stretch these guys. Yeah. I knew their abilities because I know that they can sing. I'm like, let's not play it safe.
Right.
Like I'm going to like stretch you to your limit. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. I did that to the drummers. I'm like, yeah, that was a good take, but you got to give me more.
Yeah.
And I know that there's more. Let me see that fire. Like, I know I've heard that fire. I felt that fire before from you. Mm-hmm. Give it to me because that's what I want to capture. And from the singing and from the guitar playing, I'm like, this was a badass part, but like, what can we do else? Like, what's going to stretch you, physically, mentally, creatively. Yeah. And basically I'm grabbing the best takes of the top of their range pretty much and captured it on the album. That's what I did.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it came out great. And so those are all producer things. Had you thought of yourself as a producer previous to this? Have you produced records before?
No. I think today a producer is different than it was in the 70s, I would say, because a producer now is doing a lot of engineering work.
Right.
And so if I was just, I guess my role would be executive producer, but more of a hands-on, like I'm in the studio. So it was like
You're more of the 70s producer.
70s producers. For a lot of you that aren't musicians or in studio, so you have a guy that is an engineer. He's the one that knows how the gear works, right? And usually he's the one getting paid pretty much probably the least out of everyone. Right. Right? You have an engineer that's knowing how to set levels and get it all ready. Then
the musicians are usually being paid the least, but...
Right, and that too. Unless they're a session guy, right? And then you got the producer it's pretty much the director of a film,
right.
Which is a producer. Right. So a director of a film is technically, what I think Ron Howard said was, directors protect the story. Okay.
Nice.
They make sure that the story is interpreted the way it should be. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the way a music producer is. They are making sure that the song is coming out the best it can. Right. Taking chances, trying experiments out and seeing, what if we did this, and maybe you might hit gold on that, on that idea. Yeah. And the great thing about music is that you can record something and then you can erase it and just re-record over it until you get it right. Right. So, but a good producer will know in his head, like Mutt Lange or someone like that, that go, I know exactly what this needs, and will pinpoint it. You need to do it exactly like this on the guitar. Here's your part. Boom. Oh, that guitar part's great, but it needs to have a melody in it. Okay, play the melody. That's the part. Boom.
Yeah. Because you also did a documentary at the same time of all this stuff, and it's interesting. I just watched it yesterday, and it's interesting to see sort of your evolution as producer guy coming out throughout the thing. And then there's moments. So you did hire a producer, David Kidd. Yes. Jenny Kidd's husband. Yeah. And I think it's sort of, there's a scene in the documentary where it sort of comes to a head in a way of like, your producer-ness is coming out and his producer-ness is getting squashed a little bit. And how was it all? How did that all turn out? And is that, if you had it to do over again, would you maybe hire him as an engineer now that do you feel more confident as a producer now?
I wouldn't have changed one thing. Yeah. To be honest, I wouldn't have changed one thing at all. I think there was a scene that, there's many moments that weren't captured on the documentary, but I know the scene that you're talking about where we were kind of butting heads a bit. Right. And where...
Which I'm so glad you left in, because it's super real and
It was super real, and you could feel the intensity in the room. Yeah. Even way more than it was on camera. It was this very intense moment where we were recording a song, and I wanted it a certain way, and I'm wanting it I mean, sometimes you get to a position where you want it like something, but you don't know what that is.
Right.
You know inside where it should be, of how the song should sound, but you still don't know how to interpret it because you don't have the language to do. And so David was also trying to do that. He wants to, his name's on the record and he wants the best for the song. Right. So he had his suggestions, which I thought were not my ideas. And what I wanted did not make sense to him. So we both had ideas that we both didn't think were the right thing for the record. And it just came down to, it was just a bunch of hits in a song that I was so afraid that his idea would make my song sound cheesy when in his head was not cheese balls at all. It was cool. To me, it was cheesy. And then my idea to him was cheesy. And to me, it was cool. So how do we meet in the middle here? Yeah. And we had this standoff where we were like looking at each other like, and poor Johnny on guitar is sitting there like, this was tracking guitar for a song. And he's just waiting to be told what to do. Right. And him and I are just headbutting. Yeah. What are we going to make him play on the guitar? I have my idea. He's got his idea. We don't want to do each other's idea. What are we going to do? And we look at Johnny, and he's like, I'm just going to play whatever you guys tell me. What do you want to play, Johnny? And he came out, which was, I don't think was in the documentary, but Johnny came out and says, so it came down to like, David wanted to do hits in the chorus. Right. Where there's a song it goes da da, right? I didn't want the da da hits in the chorus because I thought it sounded too country in my head, or too like praise worship Christian band in a way. It was like it was too natural maybe for me, right? And so we were kind of butting heads where he wanted the hits, I didn't want the hits. We looked at Johnny. And he was a little bit, he felt the pressure and didn't know what to do. And all he did was like, what if I did the hits but made them slides instead? And it solved the problem. Yeah. All of a sudden, I was like, I'm good with that. And Dave's like, well, he's kind of like doing the rhythm I want. And I'm like, he's not putting in the space that I didn't want space in the song. Right. Dot, dot, right? In between. Right. So he go, wow, wow. Right. And it's all, and we're both sold. Well, both meet right there. Right. I'm willing to take the hits with the slides. He's like, I'm willing to take the slide because I got the hits. Yeah. So, and then we were happy, and it worked in the song. So it was cool. Interesting. Yeah. How that was. Well, that makes me think of kind of two ideas. Really, is that one? When you have like headbutting happens all the time musically because people do have different ideas. And I think, and everyone thinks they're right. Yes. And I think that's what I had to learn. I think that everyone's right, but whose record is it? Right. You know what I mean? Either one of those ideas would have been a perfectly adequate or a perfectly legitimate idea, but it's your record, or who's in the lead. That's why I think people underestimate the importance of a producer. You got to have someone making decisions, because at the end of the day, neither one of those is right or wrong. It's up to whatever you feel. You felt it was that way. You felt it that way. Both are, fine ideas that you could look up and find in any song, or numerous songs. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's my record. And this is the idea I'm trying to get out of. And then I think that if people approach those moments more in that situation of like, well, that's nice. I'm not trying to say that you're, and I'm not speaking to that particular moment in your documentary, but I think a lot of times people turn this into like personal, and like people butt heads and think I'm right, you're wrong, and blah, blah, blah. But not really. We're both right, but it's my record. You know what I mean? Someone needs to, and I think that's human nature, because just look, I don't want to get too deep, but if you look at us as just humans, we're always needing, I feel like if everyone's equal, there's chaos. Yeah. There needs to be one person that, in a family, the parent is this is what we're doing, right? Right. If it was everyone together, it would be chaos. Look, we have a president for, not to give the guy any credit or anything, but we have to have a president to make a decision for a country. Right. People go to church. God or Jesus is that, or a pastor is that defining You go to school. We got a teacher.
Right.
There's always
Right.
there has to be someone that makes a decision everywhere. You work at someone has to be a boss.
Right.
Right. You have a boss. You're the boss, or you're not the boss.
Right.
Right. If you're in a section of
Yeah.
a job, who's the manager? That person's the boss of the. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
feel like it's just human nature that we
For sure.
need someone, because if we're all like,
Yeah.
we all have our ideas, and some people,
and all that butting
it's
heads.
authority, but like some people are against authority, and it's like, nah,
Yeah.
but we kind of do need it.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing.
Yeah,
It's
for sure.
psychologically, I think it is.
And all that butting heads probably is a good thing, because you need all those ideas
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, and you need to work it out, and you need to sort of check it against something else. But the other thing I said, which goes back to your earlier point, which I believe, because I've produced a bunch of records myself, and
Yeah.
as a producer, I think the best way, and just in life, like, hire the right guys, let them do their job.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
push them like you were doing, but you hired the guy that you know you're going to get what you
Right.
out of. You hire the wrong guy and you're trying to make them do something else. It's gonna take you way more time,
Yeah.
and you're never really going to get what you want.
Right.
So in that instance as well, Johnny G, phenomenal guitar player, sort of saved the day because you hired the right guy in the first place.
Right.
And like it was an amazing little moment. I feel like you came out of this record a producer. And of course, the technology, it's different these days. It is different, but it doesn't have to be. And it's not always different,
So David and I are still close friends, and it's great because, David knows so much more in the recording area than I do. And yet he was still, because it was my project, he was still not humoring my ideas, but listening and respecting me. And I think there was a respect for me that he would listen. And I learned a lot from David, and I've learned so much more than I ever did off doing this record.
Yeah.
However, David also said that he learned from me.
Right.
A guy that didn't know any of that stuff, but went with my gut, and because I know what I wanted.
Yes.
And
that's
I do
clear in the documentary too, that you came in with an idea, and that's, a lot of times, well, the fact that you're musical makes it pretty cool.
I think as being a bass players, I feel, listen a lot. And
Yes.
so do drummers, I think, too, because, while the whole reasoning, we're in a band is like we're gluing the rhythm and the harmony together. So we're I kind of explained this in my in the documentary, was, you have two sides of the Oreo that need to be connected. The bass player or the producer is the center.
Right.
You're putting
Right.
it together, is putting those two pieces together, and now you're complete.
Yeah.
And that's how we kind of think sometimes as bass players, because we're listening to the drums. We have to connect. We have to be rhythmic with the drums.
Yeah.
But we have to be as well fit in with the harmony of the guitar players and keep time, and there's a lot going on. So there's a lot of listening,
Yeah,
when the
for
guitar,
sure.
when you're kind of guiding the drums a little way, depending who's playing drums.
Right.
Some drummers try to steer the ship, which is fine. But you're trying to make everyone happy. It is trying to make everyone happy, and it's not making everyone happy, but making the music make sense.
Yeah.
The singer's doing this thing, and the guitar player's doing this thing, and the keyboard's playing, the drummer's doing this thing. How is this all going to make sense, and what am I going to play? So it does make sense.
Yeah.
That's how I think.
I think you're right in the sense that the bass player is the most, you got to pay attention to it all, really. But so we keep talking about this documentary too, and it was directed and like filmed by
Nigel Dick.
Nigel Dick. How did that happen? This dude's like so many videos. So he's an amazing dude.
If you guys don't know who Nigel Dick is, please just even go to, I think it's nigeldick.com, or just type in Nigel Dick on Google, and you're going to see this huge list of things that this guy's done. He's a music video director, or he's a director of tons of films and everything, but he's known for being the music video director. And I mean, you can say these names like,
Britney Spears, Guns N' Roses, Sweet Child of Mine, Welcome to the Jungle, Oasis, Wonderwall, Cher, Nickelback, Elton John, Ricky Martin, Tony Braxton, Ozzy Osbourne. It's incredible.
He's done Sting, Paul McCartney. I mean,
and your documentary. How did that happen?
It's crazy.
That's so cool.
It's crazy. Yeah. And Nigel is such a great. He's such a good guy and a great friend, and he's just real. And for a guy to work with so many artists, we're talking hundreds.
Yeah.
I mean, hundreds and hundreds.
The Band-Aid video,
right?
Like Band-Aid, like from the 80s, like.
It's I mean, then you can just imagine all the names off of that, you know? And,
exactly.
So he's a humble Englishman. And what's great is, so I met him, after he's done all this, back a few years, actually, I think it was the same year that I joined Mad Tea Party, actually. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So the same year I joined Mad Tea Party, I was asked to audition for a TV reality show about a rock and roll band trying to make it in Hollywood. It was going to be aired on Spike TV, FX, and it was about this band that is trying to make it, is going through all the hardships of Hollywood, has to go for, and it's basically, it was written out to be band that was nothing, or a songwriter that wanted to put a band together, and then this band forms, and then they make it and they're successful and they're the next biggest rock band. Okay. So that was the whole concept, and everything about it was awesome. So I go in to audition, and Nigel is behind the camera, and they wanted to film me, and I had to, play some songs and perform and all that stuff. Long story short, after a bunch of auditions, I end up getting the gig to be in this documentary. And it was filmed right on Sunset at the Gower Studios.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember always driving in to park to get to the set, and Dexter is filming right next to us. Right there, Dexter scenes are happening.
Cool.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I'm going in there, and, everyone kept telling me oh, Nigel Dick's, directing. Do you know who he is? And I'm like, I didn't know really, who he was. So I looked him up. I'm like, oh crap. This guy is a legend. He's a legend.
Right.
MTV wouldn't be who they are without him.
For sure.
Because more than half of the videos on MTV were directed by him. He's the guy. He was behind the music video look and almost the template of what people even did. He was the one that they copied because he was the OG pioneer of it all.
Right.
And so I come in there, and he was, the whole time was this pleasant experience, and it was so nice. And when you're part of a TV show, a TV reality show, all of a sudden you're thinking, what are they going to do to expose me and make me look like a fool? Because that's what we see on TV.
Right.
Drama.
Right.
Someone falls. Someone gets drunk. It's all this crazy stuff. And you're thinking, do I want to look like that on TV? How is this going to come across? And Nigel was very comforting. Hey, I got your back. I want to make you look cool.
Wow.
I pretty much was a fan of us individually, because we ended up knowing each other. And the filming of that, took over a year of wearing a lapel mic, going to different scenes here and there, and him filming and him directing and doing this, and some surprises too, and meeting sponsors and flying to New York and doing a show. It was all this crazy stuff. After all of that, the show didn't turn out. It didn't happen. It didn't air. It did air for the first couple episodes, and then it got dropped. Something happened. It didn't work out. I end up leaving. Nigel ends up leaving, all that stuff, right? And I didn't really communicate with him because he was still like at that time a role of director, and we weren't like friends. We were just we worked together a lot.
Right.
So when I had this idea of this Kickstarter, I had an idea. I'm like, well, if I'm going to go big, if this is going to be my one shot, right? The Eminem one shot,
right.
Of doing this, why don't I make it a documentary and film all these guys because I wanted 35 musicians, I wanted different singers, I wanted different songwriters. This got to be filmed.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, who do I know? And I'm like, I know so-and-so and this person, their stuff's okay. And then it clicked. I was like, what if I asked Nigel?
Wow.
And I was like, he's not gonna say yes.
Right.
But you know what? I'm not gonna afraid to just ask. Why not ask? I had his phone number and I called him up. It was like, Nigel. I left him a message, and I was thinking, I'm gonna give him the best sales pitch he's ever heard. Of this amazing idea and project.
Right.
And so I did. I gave him this whole thing, and he didn't even think about it. He's like, of course I would do that. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
He's like, of course.
That is so cool.
He's like, I'd love to be a part of it. He's like, and getting to know Nigel, then I find out he actually is a bass player too.
Yes, I know.
And long story short, he wanted to be a bass player. He wanted to be in a touring band around the world being a bass player. It just so happened that he ended up hitting it with this film director, being a director, and he got his success through that. But his heart is being a bass player.
Because he was in a band called the Stiffs, I think. It was part of a TV show.
Yeah.
They were like the backup band for a TV show or whatever. And
it was like a contest show or something, or a band show. Yeah, something.
I was going to bring that up too. He's a bass player. You're a bass player, hitting it off. That's pretty cool.
And that was a big thing, was that he got this connection that he was, even though he's successful and he's older, right? Mm-hmm. He was still kind of living through me because he got to know me. He liked my bass playing. He wanted to see me succeed.
That's so cool.
As a bass player, because he was a bass player.
Yeah.
And it was just that connection. It was like this bass player connection kind of a thing. And he's just a sweetheart. So he accepted. He's like, I'll do it. Yes, what do you need? And honest to God, any date I'd give to him or any shoot, he was like, I am there. Whatever you need.
That's cool.
And it was like, what? Like, mind blown that someone this successful is not an asshole.
I know. LA is a weird place, because sometimes you would get a weird answer, and then other times, you're surprised that people are human. But it's always great to hear. And I think because not everybody would have the balls to even ask him.
Right. Yes.
But it's always worth it. Maybe you're going to get a weird answer and say no, but I don't know. More often than not,
I would say the moral of this whole Kickstarter, and I'll tell you, is don't be afraid to ask, because I was not afraid to ask for money.
Right.
I was not too proud to ask for money.
Right.
And I was not too afraid or too proud to ask this legend director, because the worst thing you can get back is no. And yes, you can maybe get your feelings hurt a little bit, but that's the worst thing that they can do, is just say no. And that's it. Just ask.
Wow.
And you never know what you're going to get back. And a lot of people are afraid to ask.
Oh man, I am.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I don't want to bother this person.
It's very true.
Yeah. Oh,
exactly.
I don't want to, right?
Yeah. No, it's an absolutely great lesson.
Just ask. The power of asking. And Dan Franklin is this guitarist that did Kickstarters. He's done 3 or 4.
Right. Another T guy.
He was another, and he did, and
great
that was the big thing. He told me to watch this TED Talks episode of Amy Palmer, and the whole TED Talks is about asking.
Oh, interesting.
And
is she indie band person?
Yes.
Yes, I think I've seen that as well. Yeah.
Yes. And so she was able to be successful, like very successful, getting like millions of dollars for her stuff by the power of asking.
Right.
That's
cool.
There are a lot of people out there that want to help.
Yeah.
And I guess it can come down to people's love languages too. Like, there are people that their love language is giving.
Right.
And
I know.
You don't want to take advantage of those people, but
if you're not good at receiving, those people are tricky.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Summertime.
So there are a lot of us out of work right now, waiting to get back to playing shows and touring. And I know I've had to do whatever I can do to take my mind off the situation from time to time. And one of the ways to pass the time is to catch up on some books you've missed. But if you're like me and you don't love to read, there's another way you can consume. Audible.com has thousands of titles to choose from, including audiobooks about music production, songwriting, the music business, music theory, instructional audiobooks, and biographies of your favorite musical heroes. But besides audiobooks, you can also listen to podcasts, theatrical performances, A-list comedy, and exclusive audio originals you won't find anywhere else. Right now, you can get a free 30-day trial if you visit audibletrial.com/divebarrockstar. That's audibletrial.com/divebarrockstar, and you can catch up on your audio reading. I'd like to take a second to thank you for listening to the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast. As a new podcast, getting the word out is a vital part of what it takes to keep the show on the road. Or off the road, as the current case may be. If you would like to support the podcast, all you got to do is subscribe wherever you listen. And if you have an extra minute or two, please leave a review. You can also share and follow the podcast on your social media apps. Okay, enough begging. I hope you're having fun. And once again, thank you for listening. Well, it's interesting because it's funny that we went this far too. It's like because this is such a weird emotional business. Like it's not that much different from acting in the same sense that you're kind of paid for your emotional contribution to the world. That's what we're doing. We're playing music. It's all about emotions. Yet when you get off stage, it becomes this hardcore, ruthless, business a lot of the times, and managing that is tricky.
When you stick business in with pleasure, I guess, or emotions, it just gets all messed up.
Yeah, it gets sloppy really fast.
You're packaging a happiness or you're packaging emotion and selling it.
Yeah.
It's...
Yeah, and that selling it part, it's really tricky. It's really tricky for a lot of artists, too, because when you're starting to turn what you love into a commodity, the way you think about everything has to change. And yet you can't lose that initial emotional connection to it. Mm-hmm. But you kind of have to lose that initial commotion, that connection to it. It's, it's a tricky business. Oh, art and commerce, it's...
There's a lot of variables and everything. I mean, someone way back told me, they said, okay, you have a doctor who's put in hours. Let's say they put in 12 years of schooling, right? Mm-hmm. Now they get to a position where now they're a doctor. They get paid handsomely to be a doctor. They're very knowledgeable. They know about a lot of things. And they continue to learn as they go, and it just makes them more valuable. It makes them kind of ladder up a little bit, right? So you have those, but also, or a scientist or astronaut, right? Mm-hmm. You have a musician. Let's take a serious musician, right? They're putting the same amount of hours. They're putting in the 10,000 hours that they say to master something, even more. Yeah. And then when you become professional, you're still learning. And some of us do this for 20, 30 years, and it's, to me, it's the same thing. It's like, but we're looked at differently.
For sure.
Because maybe we're not dressed the same, or because, lifestyle is a little bit different. Yeah. But it's really the same thing if you take a serious musician. Yeah, it's the same for sure.
But also, like, when you think about a doctor, even for me as a musician, especially right now, we're in the midst of chaos and crazy stuff. We're not even allowed to work right now, really. It'd be illegal to have a concert. And it makes me feel a little insignificant compared to a doctor right now who's trying to save lives and failing, arguably at a pretty big rate in this country. Like, people are dying of COVID on a mass scale, and
Right.
they're on the front lines and I'm whining because I can't play my music. It gets into your head that way too,
Yes.
for me anyways. I mean, but it doesn't mean that I haven't spent 30 years, like you say, like working on my craft and becoming the best that I can. And it's not like we don't provide a service for people and a certain amount of joy, which
Right.
in these times they need as well, But yeah, that's a deep,
You don't see a doctor that's put 30 years in his profession working for tips,
right, for sure.
right?
Yeah.
Which is a little bit different. I mean,
Yeah.
um,
But that's interesting because you also did Postmodern Jukebox,
yeah.
and they are kind of under fire right now. I don't know if
I
you've
don't know
read,
anything
but-
about it. No, I don't.
Well, it kind of ties into Black Lives Matter, and their black cast members had wrote an open letter about, apparently somebody had made them take their Black Lives Matter pin off to do a show more than one time. I think there's but the other complaint is just about how little he pays the people, and he has a multi-million-dollar situation going on at this point, and you're getting paid $100 to do a video that he's going to make millions off
But
of.
that's any company. I know it's unfair.
Well, it's
but
not any company.
Let's
I
say
mean,
Walmart, right? They're paying someone to do the cash register. Well, I guess maybe that's a little bit. That's
the
a
tricky
bad
part
analogy.
is that he's a
It's
musician.
schooled. Yeah, you're bringing schooled people that are
We're very
the
qualified.
doctors
We're
of
not-
musicians.
Yes,
in.
exactly.
Yeah.
and I think that's.
Do you want me to say
Really
how much I got paid or no?
I it's up to you. I mean, and honestly, I don't know him. I'm only read the article, and I'm not even a super controversial dude. I'm not trying to stir it up necessarily, but
Yeah.
we've all, as musicians, been in situations where I'm making $100 or $150, and I went to college. Like I'm a highly skilled worker working for no money.
But as the devil's advocate, you're the one that accepted it,
For sure.
right?
For sure, but
It's the
Yes.
trade-off. I'm not defending the guy because yes, I got paid very little to do the video I was in.
right.
Very not much. It was one song and it was recorded. It was 3 takes. But I guess the trade-off is you're getting paid less, but you're getting the exposure that you would not get. So
Right.
my videos have never hit 1 million views. But
Right.
the video I'm in, I think, is now at like 4 million views.
Right. And which one did you do?
So it's called Poison with Shoshana Bean.
Oh, gotcha.
So we did the Poison by Bev.
Belviv DeVoe.
Yeah, right. By
That
them.
girl is poison.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we did it more of a 50s style to it.
Cool.
It was very cool. It was a very
Yeah,
cool
yeah.
concept.
And she's amazing.
Yeah, she was super cool, and she was like a good hang. And yeah, we did the stuff. We did 3 takes, and it was sight reading. They put the chart. We're like, okay, let's go through it once, and then okay, cameras on, record. We did 3 takes, done. Then when we left, another band came in and recorded, and I think he recorded 3 songs that day. So that's what he does is he'll book a studio or he'll have a room and he'll do multiple bands, multiple people, and he'll just bang out 5 songs
Right.
and then release them separately.
Cool.
So
Was it fun?
Yeah, it was super fun.
Yeah.
It was actually really, really fun.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was you're just with great guys playing fun music that you never really get to play. And then I mean, to be honest, when I came into it, I didn't even know what it was.
Oh, wow.
I got recommended, and I got called from Scott Bradley himself. It's like, hey, man, I need a bass player. Would you play stand-up or electric? I was like, electric. He's like, okay, I could use for electric on this. Can you come tomorrow at this time? Great. So I show up, and I'm waiting, and the studio was locked up because they're recording somebody else. And then they open the doors like, oh, well, you might come on in. Boom. Here's the chart. We're thinking of this. Boom. So I did my little notations. Okay, let's go through it. Boom, that sounds great. Can you put hits here? Great, put right in hits there. Boom, all right. Guys ready? Let's record. Do the whole thing. Okay, stop. And then, like, Shoshana, how do you feel? Oh, let's do another take. Okay, boom. And then they pick the best take.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, thank you. Next. And the next person was Blake Lewis from American Idol. So he was up next doing the next song.
Very cool.
And then I walked out and I was asking Scott, I was like, Scott, what is this what is this for? Because I never heard of Modern Jukebox. It was just a session, right?
Right, yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah, I do videos, and we do kind of this fun old style, and it's doing pretty good, and it's been fun, and I'm like, great. And that was it. And he's like, here's your check, boom, I'm out. And then I find out later that it's this big thing, and I had no idea that it was this thing.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I can't wait for my video to come out. It came out, and it did great. But I think the issue was not just the recording, but I think it's the people on tour that are the ones that are probably, I know a few people that are on the tour that wish they could get paid more. But I mean,
but it was also about the videos, especially when you're getting, like, I think I looked up one, he has 84 million spins. And I mean, beyond that, it's like, you've turned this into a multi-million-dollar situation, according to the open letter. Okay. I don't know. And again, I don't know. I just brought it up. I read the letter yesterday, and I was like, I don't know about it, but obviously we've all been in this situation. I don't know. You can get so deep about it. It's just sort of sad that it's kind of the American way that a guy, and you just said it like, well, you took the gig. Well, yeah, we're all starving out here and people want to get going. The thing is that you've made all this money on the backs of all these talented people, because you're just one dude. You couldn't do this by yourself. And you're, a normal session fee for even that would be like, if it was union, you would have made $500 or $400 or $500, but I'll bet you made $150. Wow. So I don't know. That's even below like fair market value. I mean, that's just, to me, that's just being a decent human being. Yeah, again, I'm out of it. I don't know, but we've all been in these situations. To pull off
something good, you do have to have a certain quality of musician.
You're a highly skilled dude.
Right. So it's different than, yes, you're a big company and you just find interns and minimum wage workers to help you keep the business going. And it's a little bit different than that.
Exposure is real, but not if you're the bass player.
I didn't get anything.
That's what I'm saying. No. Like if you're Shoshana Bean, then that exposure is great. It's amazing. But she also got paid a lot more. And that's the other part of the letter. Like the lead singers have a different deal. They get some back end.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's all tricky. I understand.
It is the singers that people search up, so it's a tricky thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not saying they shouldn't get paid that. I'm saying that you should get paid more.
But that just goes back to the Motown years and back to this, a studio where these guys were making hit records.
Yeah.
They weren't making that much either. And then they're on the radio for 40 years, 50 years.
And nobody knows who they are.
And they're the ones that thought of the parts.
And they shaped, they shaped the sound of pop music. Yeah, yes. They shaped history, exactly. So deadly when love is not together from the heart. Oh, it's driving me out of my mind. That's why it's hard for me to find. Can't get it out of my head. Miss a kiss, a laughter. That girl is poison. Never trust a big and a smile. That girl is poison. Ooh. If I were you, I'd take precaution before I start to meet a fly. Well, this has been awesome. We're getting long on time.
Okay.
But,
wow, it went by fast.
I know it does, doesn't it?
Right.
And we didn't even get into the fact that you're my first Canadian on the show.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Which is awesome. I love Canada. Do you like LA?
Yeah. So I first loved LA, then hated it with a passion.
Wow.
And I'm now coming to love it again because I let go. I just let go. And I think that's a huge thing, because when you uproot yourself from a different city or from a different country, you put a lot of pressure on yourself.
Oh, for sure.
Because you put yourself in this position, you came all this way, you spent money, you put yourself in a weird position, like a really weird situation, starving, because you're willing to take the chance to somehow make it, whatever that make it is, or to prove to the people back at home that you are
Right. There's that pressure of the
special or talented or whatever that is, right?
Or even that you can stay.
Or successful.
Because, a lot of people, when you leave, you're like, oh, he'll be back in a month. It's too hard in LA, or he'll never make it, or blah, blah, blah. And it is. That pressure to prove that.
It's proving people wrong in a way, or proving that you have a value. And I think as humans, we all try to prove something. I mean, look at media these days, even like apps like Instagram and TikTok. Everyone's trying to show a talent, even if the talent's not great. Everyone's trying to be a star and prove. And there's millions of people. So like, hey, I have an identity. This is me. I stick out. Everybody wants to be somebody. Everyone wants to stick out, which is...
Or you make a podcast.
Right. But you get the point that for me, I had that pressure.
Yeah.
But I came from another country. I first went to Nashville for 3 years, and then I came here. But it was the whole point of like, I need to prove that I can make it in Nashville. I need to prove to everyone that this wasn't a mistake. Mm-hmm. And when I go back, I'm not saying, hey, I'm suffering in LA. I'm saying, no, I'm doing great. And I'm not lying.
Right.
So there's a lot, it's a ton of pressure on you. Yeah. And when things aren't going your way and you keep having doors shut or slammed on you, you get very frustrated and you start to think, do I keep sticking it out or I just go home and just suck it up?
I know. I hear you.
What do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I moved here in October of 2000, and that Christmas, I went to Florida where my mom was living at the time. And I just remember the sense of dread when that week of Florida and Christmas was over, of having to come back here and like, am I ever going to make it? And like, am I going to be able to work? And like, and you're looking down the barrel of January, and it's like, I'm not really established yet. My money's running out, and it's January. Like nothing happens in January. Like the whole town shuts down, you know, and it's hard. It's a town that'll chew you up and spit you out, and then nobody wants you to come here and make it. In a weird way. You know what I mean? True, yeah. The town overall, everyone's friendly and nice. Not everyone, but there's a camaraderie amongst musicians. We're all sort of in the trenches, and that's great. But at the same time, if you go home tomorrow, that's just gonna be like, oh, good, more gigs for me. There is a sort of like, oh, well, you couldn't make it. There's a lot of people like that. It's not that friendly of a. Do you think that's does that feel right?
I feel it's almost it is a bit of a lottery. How long are you going to play? Because it may hit. And the grass can always be greener on the other side. So you just have to be kind of happy we're with you. I mean, I think when you're amongst other players, it's great to know other people so you know that you are in the same spot. And yes, maybe your buddy got this great tour and you're been here for 10 years and still haven't gotten anything. But then you hear that like, okay, yeah, he got the tour and he got the name and that's great. But then he starts complaining like, like the gig is like kind of bullshit, but I got to stick with it. I'm not naming any names, but that it's kind of like in general with things, how it is, or, oh, great. Like I got this artist gig, but then great. Well, you're in town and you get all this great work and you can stay home and you don't have to travel and you don't have to worry about all this and that. And then I'm like, oh, well, yeah, but it's kind of like bullshit, so like, what do you, but
for sure.
It's weird because like, it's a mind that
that's what I'm saying.
You have to get out of the grass is greener on the other side too, because you're waiting for this kind of like, you have to stick it out that something could happen and it could be awesome. But then when you get it, it might not be perfect and you have to, it becomes like reality. Hey, I got the job, I got the job that I wanted.
Right.
And then you realize, okay, well, I'm in the office building. I got the job. Now what do I do? Because now I have all this stress on me and stuff too.
Exactly.
So it's,
and it can be anything like, no gig is perfect.
No gig is perfect.
But that kind of speaks to another idea that I always have is like people come here with a mythology in their head of what LA is and what it is to be a touring musician or what it is to be on a TV show or what it is. And the people that can shed that mythology and be here and realize what it is are the ones that are going to be successful. The ones that can realize fast that none of these gigs are the thing that's going to make you happy, really.
Right.
It's the thing that's going
Or
to get you to the...
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the other thing. Then you get that biggest gig, and it might be the biggest artist of the year, but she tours for a year and then it doesn't go out for 3 years. And what are you going to do now? Or he or she, you know?
Yeah.
And none of these gigs, it never, that's the other thing that people, you got to pay your dues. They don't tell you that you never stop paying your dues. Like there's always dues to pay. You're going to be up and you're going to be great and you're going to be like, oh, I'm so glad I paid my dues. And then you're going to be down again and you're going to be playing weddings and you're going to be playing backyard parties and you're like, got to pay some more dues, you know, so you can get to the next level. And it's this constant roller coaster.
That's
you know?
interesting that you said that, because I remember talking to my fiance about paying my dues, and I remember I said the same thing. I'm like, how much longer am I paying my dues? And I do get a little frustrated when a 20-something-year-old is saying, I paid my dues and I got the gig, and I paid my dues, 4 or 5 years of being in LA, and I just get so angry because I'm like, what about 20 years of paying your dues?
Yeah.
Then what?
And what you got to remember in those moments is that kid's going to pay his dues again. Don't worry.
Right.
This is not going to last,
Right.
Or, you got to enjoy the ride.
Mm.
That's the bottom line, I think.
Right.
It's not about this gig or that gig or I got this and then I did this. It's about what we're looking back on now and talking about this awesome story of your life here in LA.
Right.
That's what you get to keep.
Right.
And that's what no one can take away from you. This is a particularly hard time. This is a weird time. And it is a weird time. I've probably said this on too many of these podcasts, but it's a weird time to start a podcast like this because there is no work and there's nothing to do and everyone's in a weird situation. So if you're trying to get into the music business now, whew.
Yeah. And you know what? I appreciate this podcast because if you are a musician and you're listening to this, you realize you're no different.
Yeah. We're all, oh my gosh.
That your struggles and that things this is almost like a musician church where you're like, oh, I'm struggling. Everyone's struggling through it. It is like I struggle through this. We are all everything that you're feeling.
Yeah.
All of us have felt at one time or currently a feeling.
Some of these careers of the guys that have been on here, like I look at it and I'm like, you've just non-stopped had great gigs. Does it feel like that? Most of the time, no. Yes, I have, but at the end of that gig, I didn't know what I was going to do. And then something else came up. No one's ever not scared all the time. You know what I mean? No one's ever, there's some people, obviously, like there are certain gigs that you can get that last forever and they're great and everyone's, but those are so rare. A lot of times you're going to get a great gig and then it's going to be over and you're unemployed again. We're constantly unemployed. It is sort of the through line for every musician's life. Well, this has been
cool, man.
An amazing conversation, dude.
Yeah.
And you're a fabulous bass player. You're a great guy. Like,
same.
There's, it's all, everything is, going to be great. Everything's going to be fine. Don't worry.
Yeah, we're all in it. We're all in it together.
We are.
You know, and we all have different stories. We just all hit sorry and we're back.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Every single person is sorry.
That's exactly right. Yeah, man. That was great, man.
Cool, man.
Thanks for coming out.
That wasn't a positive ending.
It was a perfect ending.
It wasn't the saddest ending ever.
I'm a die-bar rock star.
Oh man, the power of asking. I really love that lesson because it's not something I'm good at all. I think I just hate hearing no. But it's probably something worth getting over because I do know that you can only go so far on your own. And all the most successful people have had a hand up at some point. I have, for sure. But Mike didn't just take people's money. He rewarded them heavily for it, as well as put out a record. So it's something that I'm going to ponder for quite a while. And I think, hopefully I can get over this fear of no. But, it's not unusual. I think a lot of people have that. I also hate sounding so dark about LA. This interview got a little dark. I think the COVID situation is really starting to get to a lot of us for sure. I know that I've just felt a little down lately anyways. It's hard not to when we never thought it would go this far and here we are still out of work and wondering what's going to happen next. It's getting to be a pretty scary time for sure. But LA, I shouldn't be so dark. It's been hard, but this town has literally given me everything, and I think the key is that you got to love the game and you got to love the challenge. It's been hard at times, but it's exhilarating all of the time. I love being where the action is and in a place where all things are possible. So I guess I'm a bit of a cynic, but I'm also an optimist, and I love LA. So Nigel Dick was the bass player for the Stiff All-Stars, which was the house band for Stiff Records, and they appeared on a lot of TV shows with several artists and bands. So I think I got confused that he was the bass player in a TV show band. But check him out anyway on Wikipedia. His list of credits is unbelievable. We also talked about a couple of first names when we were talking about Mad T, and that was Nick, and that's Nick Schad, and George Castells, and they were both Mad T bass players as well, and they're both awesome dudes and awesome players, so check them out. And the Fox and Hounds is in Studio City, and when and if it opens back up, I highly recommend the hang there. It's an awesome bar. I've spent so many hours there, and I really wish that I could go have a drink there right now. Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did.
I'm a dive bar rock star.
Wow, you've made it to the end. I'm hoping it's because you completely enjoyed yourself and are now filled with knowledge and inspiration to move forward with your dreams. If that is the case and you would like to stay informed of new episodes, live events, and general news, please go to divebarrockstar.com and sign up for the mailing list. If you have any questions, comments, corrections, or complaints about anything you hear on the show, please email me at fanmail@divebarrockstar.com, and you may even end up on the show. We at the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast, with all of our hearts, thank you for listening, and remember, it's all about dreams.